Okay, do we have a quorum here, Linda?
Yes, we do.
Okay, perfect. Then I will call to order the special meeting of the Joint Organizational Governance Committee and Board of Retirement and Board of Investments. Today is Friday, September 17th, and the time is 8 a.m. Let's go ahead and do our official remote announcements, and then we'll begin.
Thank you, Chair Kehoe. This meeting is being conducted as a virtual meeting, so I will do a roll call of the trustees to confirm attendance. Ms. Greenwood?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Bernstein? Ms. Gray?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly? Mr. Santos? Mr. Santos? Okay. Mr. Knox?
Good morning, I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Robbins is not here. Chair Kehoe?
Present.
I'm just going to go back to Mr. Bernstein. I could see him.
I was muted. I am here.
Thank you, Mr. Bernstein. Mr. Kelly in yet? Okay, I don't see him. Mr. Santos?
President, on count of 4.
Thank you. Okay, and next I will call on the Board of Investment members. Mr. Green? Ms. Sanchez? Mr. Jones?
Present.
Thank you. And the Board of Retirement members, Mr. Harris? Mr. Moore?
I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Pryor? And Ms. Zapata. Okay, staff participating in the meeting include the following: CEO Santos Kramer, Deputy CEO Louis Lugo, CIO John Grable, Chief Counsel Stephen Rice, AEO JJ Popovich, and Laura Guglielmo. Trustees, please use the Zoom chat option to be placed in the queue. At this time, we ask all the meeting participants to mute their mics until you're ready to speak. And now we may begin with the agenda.
Great, thank you. And a special thanks to all the trustees and staff that are here on a early Friday morning on a special meeting. We're just trying to get through some of these policies that we gave directions to on the to staff, and appreciate you coming in and helping staff get these handled and pushed through. So the next item is the approval of the minutes of the Joint Organizational Governance Committee of July 21st, 2021. I'll need a motion.
Move approval. Santos.
Moved by Santos,
Second by Gray.
seconded by Ms. Gray. Okay, let's please do a roll call.
Thank you. Ms. Greenwood?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Bernstein?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Gray?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly? I don't see him. Mr. Santos?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Knox?
Yes.
Okay, and Chair Kehoe?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes unanimously.
Perfect. That brings us to public comment.
We have not received any requests for public comment.
Thank you. So we'll move on to our non-consent items. We have our first item, which is a recommendation that the committee review the revised media policy and recommend it be moved to the Board of Retirement and Board of Investments for approval. We have a memo dated September 9th, 2021. It's a red line copy with a number of changes that were requested by the committee. So I will open it up to the committee and any board members present if there are any comments or questions or thoughts before we proceed with this vote. I have Mr. Jones.
Yeah, just a quick question, just in terms of kind of benchmarking to best practices. Do we, I assume this was done in some measure of consultation with our PR agency, or, you know, what do we use as kind of a comparative sense of refining the recommendations for this?
We reviewed sample policies from other agencies. This policy was originally adopted without board approval by the executive office back a number of years ago. The committee has reviewed it and is generally satisfied and desires to continue the historical format that you see with the red lines that were discussed at the last meeting.
Okay, so then the last question I would just have, just as a thought there, I'm not sure if there's someone on here who can comment it from a staff or otherwise, is probably from a risk management standpoint. I imagine that if I look at a lot of the changes, it's kind of related to making sure that there's a level of cohesion and things of that nature. But from more of a strategic communications standpoint, did someone kind of look at it from that level to make sure we don't have anything that may run into conflict with kind of best practices for proactive or whatever kind of media external communications versus the natural desire to make sure from an organizational standpoint that we don't have people talking out of lane or something that may create liability? There's always that kind of tension. I just wasn't sure if we had somebody to look at it from the external affairs kind of best practice perspective as opposed to the internal risk management perspective.
Yes, Trustee Jones, this issue was discussed actually at the last committee meeting in July. There were a number of questions and comments about that very issue and discussion. And there was a desire that the executive office review this and think about the policy in connection with exactly that subject matter. These red lines were reviewed by the executive office.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I have Mr. Bernstein next.
Thank you, Chair Keogh. My question is more of a comment. I recall that we wanted to sort of include the DCO in the line of authority for communication, particularly about the BOR, but I'm questioning making the DCO the primary spokesperson for the BOR. And although I note in the policy the CIO is the primary spokesperson for the BOI, that to me makes more sense. The questions about the Board of Investments are generally about the trust, which the CIO is involved in. I just, as the chair of the BOR, I've not had an ongoing communication with the DCOO in the same way that the chair of the Board of Investments has with the CIO in time, perhaps. And certainly I support them being a general spokesperson, but without an explanation, I would suggest that the CEO remain the primary contact person for BOR policy.
Policy does provide that the general spokesperson for LACERA is the CEO. And then down as we go through the policy, there's a division of responsibility between the CIO, who's the spokesperson for investment matters, and the DCEO or designee, who's the primary spokesperson for board retirement policies and practices and general administrative matters. But the CEO is providing that oversight. We could add in the paragraph about the DCEO and the administrative matters in the organization, the notion of CEO oversight, if there is a desire on the part of the committee to do that.
I mean, we're in agreement. I see it does absolutely say that the CEO is the general person, as you just commented, Mr. Rice, but it does say that the DCO will be the primary. And I think maybe as an aspiration, that's fine, but candidly, Louis and I have not had an ongoing series of communications in the way that Keith and John do. And it seems slightly premature to make them the primary spokesperson. So I need to flag that because it feels premature. And in general, I think the CEO is the person who talks about LACERA policies, and the Board of Retirement in general is the board that deals with broad policies. So I am getting stuck, admittedly, literally on the word primary.
I think one solution to this, if this is the direction the committee wants to go to address this issue, is to add into the paragraph that references the DCEO as primary, add the CEO. The policy gives both the CEO and the CIO the authority to designate others to speak. But if we add the CEO to the paragraph on primary spokesperson for BOR, it would mitigate that issue while still preserving the ability of the CEO to designate others to speak for him on particular matters.
And that should exist. I guess, just so I'm clear, are you suggesting that the CEO be added or the DCO be replaced by the CEO as the primary person?
That the CEO be the primary spokesperson designating to the
Absolutely.
CEO or the AEOs or others, indeed, as we discussed at the last meeting, if he deems it appropriate.
Yeah. I would be fine to move this along, making a motion to recommend this policy to both boards with Mr. Rice's recommended change.
Okay, well, there's a motion. I'll need a second. I'll second it. So just to confirm, it is saying the primary responsibility is the CEO, period, or are we? I just need the clarification on that because I was lost in the conversation. Is it CEO period, or is it going to be CEO and then mentioning DCEO and AEO as the ability to delegate? I mean, it seems to me that's
the latter. Yeah, the last thing you said, that with CEO is primary with the ability to delegate to DCEO, AEO, or others.
Okay. So, Mr. Bernstein, just so I'm clear, that was your motion, correct?
That was my motion.
Okay, perfect. So that's the motion. It's moved and seconded. Any discussion or comments or additional thoughts? I see Mr. Santos, you have a comment.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I disagree with the motion on the table right now in that it says the Deputy Chief Executive Officer or designee is key, which may include the Assistant Executive Officer. I just don't see the reason for us to place such a limitation in that the CEO has the authority and should have the authority to designate any individual that he deems competent enough to speak on behalf of the organization, which should include the Deputy CEO. So those are my comments with regards to the motion, but just go back to Mr. Jones' point earlier about, well, let me just say this. Historically, what we have tried to do is to not put ourselves up there and comment on every single issue that may be in front of all of us. And the reason for that is because if you look at other pension funds, such as CalPERS, they are consistently in the press. And we took great pains traditionally to stay away from being that public. So I hope, and the way I read this policy, I believe it still has that underlying philosophy that it is not for us to get up front of any issue, and we have chosen to tackle any of those issues without being that public. And I understand that from time to time we have to respond. I get that, and that usually happens through the CIO because a lot of times the issues that arise are related to investments. And I like the way that we have handled that we are responding rather than being way up front. So that's my view, and those are my comments. And again, and against the motion, I think the way the policy, the way it's written, including the Deputy CEO, is important. Thank you.
Trustee Santos, with respect to the philosophy on media, there's nothing in this revised policy that changes the philosophy on media. It was the desire of the committee at the last meeting to make sure that the CEO has flexibility. This preserves that flexibility.
I'm in the comment
One
queue.
more point, if I may, Mr. Kehoe. I forgot one more point.
Yes, go
May I?
ahead.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, the other point that I was going to make is that 2 meetings ago, I believe, I kind of speak for myself, and particularly requested the CEO and the CIO, in particular the CIO, to evaluate the feasibility of getting or retaining a public relations firm strictly for investments. While the language here is vague, I just want to make sure that if and when the Board of Investments do decide to retain a firm to help Mr. Grable in responding to some of the questions by the press, that this policy will not limit that. And I don't read it that way, but I just want to make sure that at least is on the record. Thank you.
Yes, Trustee Santos, there was a desire to add a sentence about the public relations consultants. Consultants are consultants, and that language was added. It doesn't state who the consultant is, how many consultants we have, so it doesn't interfere with that plan in any way.
Okay, I have Mr. Bernstein next.
So two things. One is, I think Mr. Santos's comments about media policy are interesting. And I would note we'll be discussing the strategic plan next month. And to me, I just want to flag for staff, a very legitimate question, I think, for the board to consider under strategic plan is just how front facing we want our media policy to be. I think that's a great place to clarify it, and where we want to be on record, where we want to be responsive, where we want to be silent. I think where we want to get ahead of things, it's great. In terms of your concerns, Mr. Santos, and obviously how you vote is your vote, but my motion is actually to make the CEO the primary contact, but to explicitly have that they would have authority to designate things to the DCEO, the AEO, or other people. So this is not a policy of not encouraging the DCEO to speak on things. It's just having the primary person be who I think the primary relationship is currently with the BOR, which is the CEO. So that's my understanding. It's certainly not in any way to cut out the DCEO. I anticipate that they will be speaking regularly.
I'm in agreement. I think that this motion is not controversial at all. I think at the end of the day, it's following the policy and the intent of the policy. The bottom line is that the CEO is the spokesperson for the entire organization, inclusive of the board of retirement, and the CEO has the ability to delegate that responsibility to anyone. And I understand the heart of the policy is that most administrative policy specific stuff would be delegated to the DCEO. But I mean, if it's a healthcare issue, it might be delegated to retiree healthcare director. So it gives a lot of flexibility, whereas where it's written right now, it seems to limit it at the DCEO, which wouldn't make sense at the end of the day. So I think I'm in agreement with the policy. I don't think that it limits anybody's responsibilities. I think it just makes it a little more clear. But that's where we are right now. We do have a motion that's been moved and seconded. I see no additional requests. Ms. Gray, are you?
Yes, I do have one question. I understand the motion, but where are you putting it in? I'm looking at this and it seems like it's kind of redundant. It says the general spokesperson for LACERA is the chief executive officer or designee. I mean, it makes it clean, cut, and simple. Or is there somewhere else in
Yes,
this?
in the fourth paragraph, the first paragraph absolutely does say that. In the fourth paragraph, however, it currently says the DCO is the primary spokesperson for the Board of Retirement.
And maybe before we proceed, Mr. Kreitman, do you think you can add some comments on this?
May I add, I think that the motion does provide more clarity. So I'm in support of the motion. It doesn't restrict the CEO's ability to be the primary spokesperson, but it does clarify what our roles are. It gives us more flexibility. So I think the clarification in the motion is a good one.
Agreed, Chair Kehoe, and if I can briefly chime in, I think you know, it accomplishes what ultimately what we're trying to do is ensuring that subject matter experts are consulted and relied upon in terms of responding to requests. So obviously the CEO has ultimate responsibility, and then to have that ability to designate, I think whether it's DCO, someone referenced retiree healthcare, obviously would be consulting team members within that group as well. So I think it accomplishes that, the motion.
Perfect. Any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, let's please vote on the motion.
Ms. Greenwood?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Bernstein?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Gray? Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Thank
you hear me?
you. Yes,
Oh.
I heard you. Thank you. Mr. Santos?
No.
Okay. Mr. Knox?
Aye.
Okay, and Chair Kehoe?
Aye.
Okay, the motion passes with 1 no.
Okay, let's move on to item B, which is a recommendation that the committee review and recommend the revised code of ethical conduct to the Board of Retirement and Board of Investments. For approval, we have a memo dated September 9th, 2021. The red line copy is inclusive of comments and discussions that we had in our previous JOG-C meeting. So I will open it up if there are any thoughts or questions, concerns, observations from anyone on the committee or the boards.
Can staff just clarify for me? For instance, there's stuff on page 10 about the Brown Act, I believe. It appears to be putting into our ethical policy that we can't break the law, which I'm not arguing in favor of breaking the law, but I'm not clear. I would just like to understand why it's in our ethical policy when the law would seem to be a baseline that wouldn't even require an ethical policy.
The notion of legal compliance was in the original policy. There was discussion and a request at the last meeting to add the Brown Act. So I added a couple of references to the Brown Act specifically. The Brown Act was always in this policy. This highlights it. In fact, the references at the back of the policy have always included links to the Brown Act. You're absolutely right. It goes without saying that we're going to follow the law, but this code has emphasized that just as a matter of stating ethical principles, is that we're going to act lawfully, and the references to the Brown Act were simply at the request of the committee at the last meeting.
Okay, I mean, I believe we all intend to follow the law. I just was curious about the placement, and it was more of a question than a concern.
Any additional questions, thoughts? Seeing none, we'll need a motion for adoption.
Move approval.
Ms. Keith, I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Let's go ahead and please vote.
Okay, Ms. Greenwood?
Aye.
Mr. Bernstein?
Aye.
Ms. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Knox?
Yes.
Chair Kehoe?
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That moves on to items for staff review.
We don't have any items for staff review.
Perfect. Go to the order. Let's go ahead. And,
Chair Kehoe,
yes.
I do want to suggest that staff consider for the Board of Retirement strategic planning conversation a review of the orientation of our media policy, sort of a reflection of Mr. Santos's comments, which I think are well considered.
That's good. We'll direct staff to prepare a presentation. I know Mr. Rice back at an offsite did a really good job at the discussion when we were originally thinking about what direction they go. I remember the eagle versus the I forget the analogy, but it was a good analogy at the time. So maybe something like that would be a good discussion, a reminder of where we were and where we are as of today. So if there's no objection, we'll go ahead and direct staff to do that. And that brings us to the good of the order. So let's go ahead and, since it's been a short meeting, let's go ahead and do a quick roll call on everybody, giving everybody an opportunity.
Okay, Ms. Greenwood?
Thank you for a quick meeting. Every Friday, I try and focus on something good that happened to me this week. And short meetings are good things that can happen. So I hope everybody has a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend. And please remember to wear your seatbelt should you leave. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Mr. Bernstein?
Well, I really like Ms. Greenwood's Gratitude Friday stance. I want to second that. And I will therefore mention that early this week, after running 6 miles in 95-degree 4 p.m. Encino heat, my son collapsed from dehydration, which I think any parent or anyone would recognize as sort of a terrifying experience. And he is fine. He will be absolutely fine. He has the resilience of a 17-year-old, but it certainly makes me grateful for all the good in my life. And as we complete Yom Kippur yesterday and start the new year in my faith, I just want to wish everyone a safe and healthy and prosperous new year.
Thank you. Ms. Gray? Ms. Gray?
Great weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Santos?
Just thank you. I would like to welcome Mr. I hope I'm going to pronounce your last name correctly, Guglielmo. Is that the right way to do it? If not, I apologize. I'm pronouncing your name with the Latino accent. But anyway, welcome on board. I appreciate the information that we received. I believe it was yesterday regarding your background. Looking forward to working with you. And everybody have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Knox?
Good morning, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you. I'll save Chair Gier for last. Mr. Jones?
No comments. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Moore?
I have no further comments. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Kryman?
No comments from me. I just wanted to welcome Laura to the team. Looking forward to working with her closely, and hopefully she can say a couple of words before we're over here today. And have a nice weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Mr. Rice?
Good morning. Yesterday afternoon, the governor signed AB 361, which is the legislation that continues the relaxation of the Brown Act teleconference requirements until January 2024. I'll be sending out an email to the trustees sometime in the next few days that describes it changes the procedures a little bit, but generally, the intent is to preserve the same flexibility we've had since March of 2020. So we will be able to proceed as we have proceeded while the state of emergency remains in effect.
Thank you. Mr. Lugo?
Good morning, everyone. And in the spirit of gratitude, I do want to highlight our membership. I live by the recent Castaic fires about 8 minutes away, and I got to see the precision and responsiveness of our public safety membership. So I just want to send the gratitude there and wish everyone a great weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Popovich?
Good morning, everybody. I just want to say that I'm happy to hear that Mr. Bernstein's son is well after that. That is a scary event. And as a parent, I would be extremely worried. So I'm really glad to hear that he's going to be okay. And with that, everybody have a great weekend.
Thank you. And Ms. Guglielmo.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your very warm welcome. In the spirit of gratitude, I am very grateful for the opportunity to serve here at LACERA and to work with all of you. So thank you for that. I'm very excited about this role. It's home for me in terms of the mission that we have here at LACERA. And I hope to bring my skills and experience and abilities to the team to make this an even stronger organization. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. And last but not least, Ms. Kehoe.
Very much. I appreciate once again everybody from staff putting this together and all the hard work that went into these policies and the implementation of the policies. I appreciate and have gratitude for everybody on this board and here at LACERA. So thank you all for your commitment on a bright and early Friday morning. And in that, I will go ahead and take a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Hi, everyone. Welcome, Laura.
Thank you.